Welcome to Tiny Conversations, and thanks for tuning in. So much is being said these days in terms of where our world is heading. Many people are looking to the future and envisioning a life of community, support, a stress-free lifestyle devoid of financial struggles, wouldn't that be great? And a heightened sense of spiritual connection. So today we're taking a look at as to how we can make this a reality and what to look for in terms of pitfalls and such. So before we begin though, please don't forget to like and share this video to get it out to other like-minded people who are looking for this type of information. Let's go around, give us your name and where you're from and what got you interested in having the idea of perhaps developing a new way of living, a tiny home community.
My name is John Griffith, and I'm located just outside of Boston. For me personally, I feel fortunate to have grown up in somewhat of a communal situation where a lot of my family was part of a church and many families worked together. And I remember when my parents bought a horrible house in the 80s, dozens of people came and just fixed it all up for free for months and would do everything. And it was a very sort of safe and secure feeling. It was nice as a child, to be able to spend time with cousins so often. And, my impetus for creating this again kind of comes from my own personal story of struggle of, sort of following the American dream, getting married, having a couple of kids, having a few real estate properties, investment property, as well as like a home on a cul-de-sac to raise my kids. And what I discovered is that the demands, like the amount of time, effort, energy required to raise children and run businesses and manage real estate and have jobs and a marriage and friendships and, different communities was completely overwhelming, to the point where I had like a breakdown of the amount of pressure and challenge. And I don't think it's natural. I think as human beings, it's a lot more workable to raise children in community. Like many communities around the world, the children just sort of play freely, and there's like a handful of aunts that kind of have their eyes on the children, but it allows the parents to work or to relax or to, use the bathroom. It was literally like that with two toddlers. It's like, oh man, I really hope I have a chance to use the bathroom someday. And it stirred me to want to create that, like to recreate that experience from my own childhood. But as a parent, and it's very pragmatic to me. I think that it's sort of no longer working this American way of being independent and frankly quite isolated in trying to do everything ourselves. I don't think it's natural as humans, for 300,000 years of human evolution. No one lived themselves. No one could survive themselves. We lived in villages, small communities of 100, 150 people. And there's a kind of joy and safety and security that comes from feeling that level of support, and interestingly, when it comes to the surveys about happiness, the number one determiner of happiness is, guess what? Drum roll. It's how connected people feel to a community. And when they feel connected and they feel held and they live in close proximity and they spend time and they have authentic relationships and they feel supported, they feel very deeply happy. And I'm of the personal belief that a lot of the mental health crisis that we're facing in the United States is a combination of isolation, like a big part of it. And the other factor being the infeasibility of the cost of living, particularly in places like Boston, where, I just was at a condo yesterday. It was $2 million for a 2-bed, 2-bath condo. It's like, who can afford that? And so, the last thing I'll share in terms of why I wanted to create this was reading a book and talking about how as humans, we sort of get into this thought pattern, like someday, when I have the money, like I'll purchase a communal living retreat center, or someday when, the circumstances line up or I feel less stressed or something. And the author said, no, spend an hour every day working on your mission. And for me personally, I feel a mission to create this thing. Like I've seen a vision of just picking vegetables in a public garden in the sunlight and kids playing happily outside, and a real focus on conscious living and wellness, and having a wellness center be part of this, where people can come who are burned out and be able to have a safe space to just relax and do yoga and eat delicious garden food. And so I sort of started to reach out to people who had a similar vision, because as I shared it, countless people said, wow, I have the same vision. Some people even said, I've had that vision for 30 years. And I thought, why don't we work together and build this? And so we started this committee probably about 5 or 6 months ago. And I'm thrilled at the sort of attraction people have to it, and the incredibly talented and knowledgeable group of people that are helping to build something. I'm excited to see where it goes, where it develops from here.
My name is Lauren Stern. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is in Tampa Bay, which was just hit by a hurricane. So I've got kind of crises as my framework coming out of the last 5 days of seeing horrific devastation and flooding and homelessness, and destruction of property. So I have owned a tiny house on wheels. I have had several different rentals, an RV and a tiny home on my property. So community, like John was speaking to, and connection is absolutely important. But today I want to speak about the crises that I see that tiny living solves and can really bring just new solutions and new options for people's quality of life. So childcare, as John spoke to, a huge crisis. We don't all live near a grandma who can pour into our kids, and the same benefits for elders to have small children in their life, loving them, thinking they're the greatest, they each have patience for each other beyond what a parent ever could have. And there's just no substitute for that. So elder care and quality of life is really, I see, equally hand in hand important to solving as childcare. The cost of housing, as John said, pretty much in every market has doubled since 2020. And that is not sustainable. That is not matched the cost of people, the level of people's incomes. And people either rent for years and years and build no equity, or if they ever want to change, downsize or move, the prices to buy really are exorbitant as well, especially for multifamilies, or if you wanted to move, your cousin in with you, or your aging parent. Multifamilies are super expensive. Climate change and catastrophic events, flooding, and just the changes to our ecosystem that we've seen with a lot of these strong storm systems, wildfires in Hawaii, just freak events that keep happening that we hear are probably going to continue. I said to Tyler today, my goal is that we're going to be creating tiny home communities for people that are in our families, or that's their retirement plan, is to live in a planned tiny home community. But also I see that the resources of being able to build, whether it's shipping containers or geodomes like they did in Hawaii, they shipped out hundreds and hundreds of geodomes, which could be shipped lightly for people to have housing that had solar and could filter water. I mean, that's amazing to have had that all the way out in Hawaii a week after those devastating fires happened. So for us to be able to tap into the supply chains of creative housing development, smaller housing development, a lot of people care about their environmental footprint. And so if you're eating locally, if you have a bike and you reduce your footprint from your car travel, like a lot of these shifts that some of us are aware of, our biggest expenditure mostly is our housing. And so if we live in 1,500, 2,000, 5,000 square feet, and we're using functionally a quarter of that, how much stuff do we really need? How much space we really need? Millennials in particular are fascinated with tiny homes aesthetically, but I think emotionally we're also tired of being dominated by stuff and high cost of living. We'd all rather live cheaper and buy our time back than work a lot and have a high cost of living. So again, tiny homes are just an amazing solution to all of these crises that I see. So the other thing I see is we're kind of, we're coming out of COVID. I think we're going to continue to see devastation come out on the news from this big hurricane that just happened. Natural disasters are happening all over the place, but it's a slow burn for the cost of living and the rental and housing crisis. But people are emotionally grappling with, who do I want to live with? Who do I want to live near? Who do I want to spend time with weekly or have my kids spend time with and be exposed to and be in ongoing relationship with? So I would say I've been in the tiny conversation for 5 years. Actually, it's 6 years. We bought our RV 6 years. So 6 years I've been in this conversation. Tyler and I visited a property this week that we're excited about. I drove by another one that I'm excited about yesterday, literally banged a Yui and turned around to look at the address and the number of the agent listing it. So this feels urgent to me now. It feels like I've found the right team members to make things happen. And there's a lot of funding for affordable housing. A lot of states have realized that this is a big crisis and they want to put money towards smart, sustainable development. I think tiny development is the way to go. So that's my excitement and my enthusiasm and some of my knowledge. And I'm thrilled that we're starting a podcast so that all the people out there that have had this dream fly through their head or on their heart for years, like John said, can educate themselves, get connected to resources to crowdfund them or come up with creative lending solutions so that they can buy a co-op with their friends or whatever they want to do, their family, because the time is ripe for it. And if we put our brains together, we can actually solve this problem and then share it with a lot of people.
I'm Tyler Ozog. Thank you, John and Lauren, for sharing your story and your interest. You guys made some really good points. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. I grew up in Michigan, and I really, when I grew up in a community setting, my whole neighborhood would all help each other out. We would be there for each other. We had gatherings, and so it's kind of brought to me to that's like the way that I want to live because the world has been changing so drastically. I did a lot of construction project management for a good 15 years. And when I lost my job about 5 years ago, I decided that I could kind of create something that I had growing up and struggling in school and, with a lot of mental health issues. I knew that I wasn't the only one. So I figured, why don't I see if there's other people interested in something that I'm doing? So I put a Facebook group together and it absolutely just blew up. So when that happened, I was like, I have to do something. So I spent a good amount of my time not going back to a corporate job, spending about 2 years putting a nonprofit together, which is Earth and Fire Tiny Developments. And my main mission was to develop these tiny home communities for our elderly, our disabled, our veterans, and our low-income families. And as I created this nonprofit, I was thinking, hey, like I want to live in this kind of environment, not just for people that need it and want it. I want to do it too. And so I've created a community within, people that are around here and that I've connected with on my group, on my Facebook group. And so it's completely changed my life knowing that I am not alone and I can do these, we can build these communities together. What I see is a community with all different ages. And I would really like to see the elderly people teaching the kids and the kids teaching the elderly. And a lot of people think that a lot of our communities put our elderly to the side and they're not able to thrive in what they are supposed to be doing for the rest of their lives. They're shoving them in rooms. And so if they're able to live in a community and, be involved with what we're doing, they'll be able to live a better and more sustaining life.
I think you all touched upon so many different reasons why this type of community should excel in this new moving ahead, because right now we're on the precipice of a lot of changes, and we haven't realized how our the way we've lived in the past has affected our health, our mental state, how we've been traumatized, stressed out, worried about finances, trying to get the bills going. And we really, I mean, if we had support, and I feel like that's the number one thing, is having support going on,
Yes.
that we always have people to fall back on. We can also, like you were saying, Tyler, teaching others, teaching children how to cook or plant the things that are very important. I feel that that's very important, because that's where we're going to be heading. We're going to have to become very self-reliant. And I was even listening to somebody in an interview just recently, today, as a matter of fact, it's a man, Jay Wiedner, and he was talking about the opportunities in chaos. And the fact is that while we're going through chaos, we're realizing the things that we need to change about our lives. And we're
Mhm.
becoming more aware of it right now. He sees, like, moving forward, the cities would change to using sacred geometry, using materials that don't make people sick, instead of all the materials that they use cheaply in all these building sites. People actually learning how to supply for themselves, planting for themselves, using that also as a means of creating an economy for themselves. Because unfortunately, all our food right now is highly poisoned. Even the stuff that's being grown is highly
Yes,
poisoned, you
absolutely.
know. And a lot of these agencies are pushing for, unfortunately, a lot of these farmers to use a lot of chemicals that's furthering the poisoning of society. This type of perspective can change the way we live in the future. And this
Yep.
could bridge something
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you all think? Jump in
Well,
anytime.
I love so much of what you said, Mimi, and that I feel that, the future is sort of going back to the past, like the way we've always lived. Cities are a relatively new phenomenon. Like they've literally only existed for 6,000 years out of 300,000 years of human evolution. And there's so many things that are so unnatural. People get so stressed out in traffic because
Yes,
we're not designed to be trapped. We're not designed to
that's
like
right.
be stuck, and not able to move where we need to move. And even red lights and like the stress of people and pedestrians and bikes, and it's hard on the nervous system.
Mhm.
And I've always found for myself, I'm happiest with my bare feet out in nature in the sun. I just, my whole nervous system relaxes. And I think as humans, there's more of a longing for that, and to build on the part of food. I swear to God, a lot of what we're eating now, I think will be illegal in 20
Yeah,
years. And I don't say
yeah.
that because I'm a conspiracy theorist. I say it because it happens constantly for humans. They're like, wow, we found asbestos. It's the best new building material. Let's put it into everything, or like my doctor recommends Camel cigarettes, or, so many times that there's a delay in the cancer and the sort of detrimental effects on people. I think the health crisis is primarily sugar and all these additives our bodies don't know how to process. We don't know how to
Mm,
process corn syrup.
yeah,
We know how to eat corn. That's it. And I think, a big part of this will be having significant gardens, greenhouses, places where we can grow a lot of food and can it and store it and eat it straight from the earth, no chemicals. And I just envision like people's health skyrocketing. And the last piece I want to build on is like just the cost of living. I mean, I've been very fortunate to travel to like, probably 35 countries. And the truth is, there's a lot of places in the world where people are extremely happy with nothing. Like they live in tiny homes, not because they have an option, but because, it's all people need. They just have a couple of pots and pans, but they're so profoundly connected with each other. I'll never forget this little village in India where there's no electricity, no one speaks English, no one has any possessions. And these were the happiest people that I had ever seen in my entire life. And it caused me to question, these notions of capitalism, which I think capitalism was wonderful up until the last 20 or 30 years, that it's become you think about these food industries, like they only care about profit. And when it comes to food, if you only care about profit, you're always going to use the cheapest, crappiest, crummiest, sketchiest method. And like, it's just not right. It should be, we shouldn't be thinking about that. And so I feel things have gone to a point that they've become unsustainable and untenable, and especially the cost of living. I mean, it's painful. Like, I spent the summer in Spain and Colombia, and, you know, it was so much less stressful. Everything was so much cheaper. And I was literally saving money by traveling. And it sort of awakened me to how bad things have gotten here, and like so many people I know, we're stressed financially because they just keep getting higher and higher and higher. Even the cost of groceries is more than like eating at restaurants in most places in the world. And I see that as being an enormous stress relief for people to share costs. I mean, it's practical. Why are we all paying for all of our own things? Why don't we split it across a larger group of people, and then everything's very affordable? And anyway, that's my rant for now. Who's next?
I like it. I have to say that when it comes to work, it makes me really sad watching people go to work. It's not just a 9 to 5. They're working 40, 50 hours a week, maybe even longer, because they have to drive to work. They have to sit in traffic, come home, eat dinner, go to bed, and do it all over again. And when I lost my corporate job, I mean, my stress level, my mental health completely changed. And I knew that I couldn't go back to it because of that. And now to watch people do it it's put me in a different perspective, and I can't watch people do it anymore. And I know that there's a way to change that. And I think that trade and barter is one of them. And living in a community setting, we can do that. We can have a community kitchen where somebody is cooking and there's a schedule. Everybody,
Yes.
you know what I mean? And the garden, we're cooking our own food, we're canning, like you said. There's a lot of ways we can teach kids how to grow their own food. We can teach them how to cook at a young age. There's things that we're not teaching them in the school system. I mean, there's just blank spots in school that kids they're not learning anything besides the basic stuff of go to work. They're not teaching us to be entrepreneurs, and they're not striving us to what we're supposed to strive in. So we need to change that. And I'm super passionate about working and kids and developing their own ways of what they're supposed to be doing in life. And that goes back to our food. We need to have gardens, and we need to be cooking our own foods because our processed foods are everywhere. We can't even get healthy food anywhere anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really sad. It's almost impossible.
And that's what creates all the ADHD and the ADD in these kids, and they wonder why they can't sit down, and they wonder why they're crazy when they get home.
Yeah. Well, and I think, a lot of what I've read in terms of child development in Waldorf specifically, where I have my daughter, is that kids develop by natural motions, sort of following their parents around as they're walking, as they're collecting water, as they're gardening, as they're cooking, as they're cleaning. And children love to participate and be very physical, like throughout the day. And it's how they develop. It's how they grow. It's how their muscles grow, their sense of balance and everything. And it's so natural to just have them sitting in a classroom with tablets for like 8 hours a day. I mean, it horrifies me, to be honest. Here in Massachusetts, they give first graders tablets in the public schools. And I'm like, it literally scares me. I'm like, I don't want my daughter on a tablet all day. It's just things have gotten just so kind of ridiculous. And there's a lot of data showing that people live longer, happier lives in those multi-generational settings. They're healthier. It's like you said, it's great for the kids, and it's great for the grandparents, and it's great for the parents to ever have a break. Because the other statistics show that American parents are the most miserable in the entire world. In the entire world, we are the most miserable because there's the least resources, there's the least support, and the childcare is the most expensive. No, it's like literally 2,000 a month per child here. So you're looking at 50 grand just to be able to have them away for part of the day,
Have
to
someone
work
else
or something.
have someone else
Yeah.
raise the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And so part of the vision is to have there be like a school as well as a daycare center with hired professionals. Like I said, split costs. It makes a lot more sense economically to have one or two teachers and pay their salaries across 50 people than it does for 50 people to pay 2,000 a month for each child. You're looking at quick math, I don't know, 100 grand. Is that right?
We obviously bring our own passions and experiences to this project. And so if people follow along on this show or whatever this is, podcast show, conversations, you'll hear more about what matters to each one of us and how our experience shapes our commitments. I'm interested when I talk to people in what they want. And I know John and Tyler also, like, that's where we all lead in this conversation when we are listening to people. And a lot of people have a dream in their heart, but they don't think it's ever going to happen. So to pull it out of you, if you're someone that has a thought or an idea or a dream or a fantasy of this life, living on a commune or a community with other people that are like-minded, what would it take for you to actually do it? You have to deal with that. You have to deal with that. You'd have to get rid of some of your stuff. You'd have to work in a way that, make money in a way that's remote, or that you could actually go out and do from the location that the tiny home community would be in, which probably would be more rural, because that's where more land is and more flexible zoning to build these kinds of places. You'd have to look at what would your, do you have concerns about what your family or friends would think if you ran away to live in the woods, right? Like, there's lots of stuff that might come up for you if this is something you're interested in. And we've all kind of sorted through that for ourselves. So I don't know yet what it's going to look like for us to sort of host these inquiries or these dialogues for people as we build communities. If Tyler and I, if we go under contract at this property that we looked at that we haven't even told John about yet, in Florida and Tampa Bay, we would have 30 spots or whatever, and then we would make a website and you'd see pictures, and then we'd build the units and you could see what they looked like and all that. But if you were ready now to move there, great. Well, if you look at that and you say, that's not where I want to live, or that's not quite what I'm looking for. Our intention is to create a space, like Tyler has a Facebook group, where people can ideate and look at pictures and think about, is this something I want to do in 10 years, in 5 years, next year, right now? Like, if you said there's a spot right now for me, I'd sell everything and come. There's a lot of logistics that go into changing your life. And the end goal is that peace of mind. The difference between stepping outside of your tiny home and being surrounded by old Florida jungle that Tyler and I were just walking through, to get there from right now you're commuting, or you have a mortgage payment that you stress out about every month, or a rental payment that you stress out about every month. We're under no illusions that is going to be an easy life transition for you. And part of the community that we're building is going to support with that emotional process, not just the logistics. And also funding, lending. We know that lending and money to be able to do this is untraditional, is unconventional. You can get a mortgage if you meet the qualifications, but at least there's lots of banks that do mortgages for a regular home or apartment. For this, there's not that structure already in place. So we're going to be exploring different kinds of ways for you to invest, to move your assets, to rent, or to apply, like working. Maybe you'd work 30 hours a week for the community and have reduced costs to live there, something like that. So we're open to creative ideas. I think, Tyler, your Facebook group is the best place for us to link in comments for people to come if they want to ask us questions, or just start thinking about stuff, or have suggestions, or know of a great property. And by the way, the search for the properties is the hardest part. There are contractors everywhere. There are people who will build tiny homes, geodomes, tree houses, shipping containers that are really cool, modular things from Japan. Like, there's tons of options for the structures. They can be customized. They can be solar. They can be a self-composting toilet. So it can be totally off grid. But where to find land that the county or the state has said you can legally put a lot of units here. That's the tricky part. That's the hunt as we start this process of building, is to hunt for those properties, and then to make sure that they're viable to development wise with the utilities and water and all the things that need to run a community, like actually run the lights and all that. So that's the stuff I love, is the logistics. And Tyler and John both have different parts of this that they love, that make them come alive. And why this is happening now is because the three of us have found each other, and we have complementary visions and complementary skills. And that is what it takes to build out a vision, is finding the right people to partner with and having skills that can work together. So this is happening. This has been an idea and a dream for each of us for many years, and now is the time. So Miriam, I'm super excited that you've invited us into this opportunity to share publicly about it and be organized with our conversations, and get people in action to start moving towards this if this is something that they want.
Great. This was a wonderful discussion, and I can't wait till we get on to the next one, because there's going to be so much more to even talk about, because you'll probably have some more information and material that you can share with others at that point. Please don't forget to like and share this episode of Tiny Conversations, and also subscribe to the channel for notifications of upcoming shows. And if you have any questions or suggestions on this topic and you want to get in touch with us, please feel free to drop them into the comments section below in the description box, and we can add these to ongoing discussions. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you real soon on Tiny Conversations.